Kickoff of the 2025 college football season is just 50 days away, and these are my best case and worst case scenarios for the Texas A&M Aggies in year 2 of Mike Elko. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, where we get your podcasts. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. As always, we're brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/SECU to get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets today. Kickoff is just around the corner, and year 2 of Mike Elko is officially here in Aggie Land. These are my best case and worst case scenarios for Texas A&M football in the upcoming 2025 season. And guys, when I say best case, worst case, these are my realistic best case and worst case. So no 12-0 or 0-12 banter, if you will. Also, guys, these are not predictions. I cannot make that more crystal clear. I will drop those in the coming weeks, late July, early August, if you will. This is truly a broad look at the schedule based off who they play, who Texas A&M has returning, the type of team they have, what I think the ceiling is, and what I think the floor is for Texas A&M in this season. And of course, guys, as always, A&M, one of the most fascinating talking points of the offseason because it's a program loaded with talent, with a big-time stadium, with a big-time fan base, and who I feel like is a big-time head coach or will be a big-time head coach. But can A&M finally break through and live up to some of the hype that so many are putting on them? So again, best case, worst case scenarios for Texas A&M this season. With that being said, let's pull up the upcoming 2025 football schedule. The non-conference, pretty manageable out the gate. You start with UTSA, then you got Utah State. Boom, boom, should be 2-0. Then you go to Notre Dame. And I think Notre Dame, again, going to be one of the best teams in college football, a top 10 or at minimum top 15 team. Obviously, you played them last year in Mike Elko's Texas A&M debut. Really tough season opener. Did not deter you from having a solid year 1, but you now have to go to South Bend. Winning or losing that game certainly going to have an impact on the best case and worst case scenarios for this season. A massive toss-up game for the Aggies. Your SEC opener after a bye week, by the way, is the Auburn Tigers in College Station. I mean, you feel like, guys, this is one you've got to set the tone and be 1-0 in SEC play after this week. Auburn, obviously, they're trying to be one of the biggest surprises in the SEC. Jackson Arnold, Eric Singleton, so Cam Coleman, so many weapons there down on the plains. But I am still skeptical a little bit of what Auburn is going to be this season. So you feel like A&M, feel like you should be or could at least get off to a 1-0 start in conference play. You then have Mississippi State at home. You've got the Florida Gators at home in a tough game. At Arkansas. And remember, this is a game no longer being played at Jerry World, which I know both fan bases and myself included very excited about. A&M has to travel to Fayetteville. Could be really interesting. You got to go to LSU the next week. Really tough game. Probably going to be a night game down there, at Death Valley. Then you got to go to Missouri after a bye week. Always a tricky road trip when you go to Como. What are they going to be with Bo Prabula and company? You then get South Carolina at home, a team that mollywopped you a season ago at Williams-Brice. You then have Samford in the non-conference, of course, the week prior to your rivalry showdown with Texas. That is going to be a Friday night game in Austin. So, guys, you look at this schedule. It's really interesting, right? Because you go to Notre Dame, then you go home game, home game, home game. Then you go road game, road game, road game. Home game, road game. Like, it's very, you're home, away, kind of alternating back and forth there for multiple stretches. Obviously, I think we'd all agree, you've got to take advantage of the road contest. You've got to take advantage of a raucous Kyle Field, which it will be all season long. I see the Notre Dame game as a big-time tone setter, and I think that's going to send your season potentially one way or the other to the best case or the worst case. So, guys, with that being said, I think the schedule, it's difficult. There's no such thing as an easy schedule in the SEC, but I think it is somewhat manageable, right? I mean, Notre Dame on the road is tough, but at Arkansas, I mean, Sam Pittman, is he still the head coach at this point in the season? At LSU is going to be extremely difficult, no doubt. But at Missouri, the other road trip of that 3 straight, you'll take that. You'll take a road trip to Como over some others, right? Then you close out the season, obviously, at Texas, which is going to be a really fun game, and I'm excited to see that, the second edition of the SEC on SEC A&M Texas, or Texas A&M, if you will, rivalry. And again, you got to protect the home field. I mean, Auburn, Mississippi State, Florida is going to be tough, but they're at home. South Carolina is going to be tough, but they're at home. And then in non-conference, guys, I think you should be able to go at worst 3-1. So with that being said, my best case and worst case scenarios for the Aggies. Let's start with best case. And guys, I got to be honest with you. I'm almost a little bit disappointed in myself that I allowed myself to get carried away with the hype, because you guys will find this out when I drop my predictions in a few weeks. Like when it comes to A&M, if you're looking for and I don't think, to be fair, I don't think A&M fans, from those that I've interacted with, what I've seen on social media, what we see in our comments, I don't think you guys are looking for the crazy hype like we've seen in years past. I think most A&M fans would kind of like to lay low and go out and prove it. And I think that's the best way to operate. So I'm going to give A&M the opportunity to do that. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I've got my best case 10-2. If it all clicks, if Marcel Reed, because here's the thing, this roster's still loaded with talent. We all know that. Roster's loaded with talent. Best case at 10-2, though. Do I think it's possible? Yes, I do. You beat Notre Dame early on as a tone setter. Like maybe a Florida's not quite as good as some are making them out to be in the preseason. Maybe a South Carolina's not quite as good. You can nip both of them. You know, maybe you beat an LSU at Tiger Stadium. Maybe you were able to do that. Maybe maybe you take out Texas in a year. I think you'd have to beat Notre Dame in this scenario. I do. I mean, I think your toughest games in the schedule are going to be at LSU and at Texas. I think Notre Dame is the third one there. So if you can beat Notre Dame, I think there is a realistic path to get to 10-2. But A&M, I mean, Marcel Reed has to take the next step and be a big-time dude in this conference. Probably, I'd say, a top-5 quarterback. Torian York's got to have a big year on the defensive side, leading them. Some of those offensive weapons and guys you picked up out of the portal. You know, you've got the two-headed monster back there at the running back position that I think could be maybe the best dynamic duo in the backfield in the SEC. You got to be able to run the football effectively. I mean, listen, you bring back a lot on the offensive line as well, a ton. I think you bring back more than anybody, actually, on the offensive line. So that's got to gel and live up to the hype and the expectations that we're putting on them. 10-2 and the college football playoff, I do think, is a possibility. Again, that's why I'm putting it best case scenario, though. Is it the most likely? I don't think so. But best case, 10-2, I think it's on the board. Worst case scenario. Worst case scenario for the Aggies. Listen, you're going 3-1 in non-conference no matter what, right? I do think you're going to win at least 4 SEC games. I do. I think you're going to win at least 4 SEC games. I think the roster is simply too good to go any worse. I mean, at minimum, worse than 6-6. But I got your worst case 7-5. Like, I think this team, I think the floor is actually somewhat decently high, right? Just because you're so deep in the trenches, that's such a great foundation to build off of. I don't think you're going to fall anything below 7-5. Which, guys, where does this put the sweet spot? Where Texas A&M typically finishes, which is 8-4. Now, am I going to pick them to go 8-4? I don't know yet. I might pick them to go 9-3. I might pick them to go 7-5 or 10-2. I don't know, but it puts that sweet spot right in the middle of this. And that's what A&M, until they shake it, has just sort of always been that. I mean, there's a reason the Texas 8-4 allegations fly like crazy. But again, I think the floor for this team is pretty high. Again, when you've got the trench warfare that you got with this club, when you've got the talent they have on both sides of the football. And I think Marcel Reed is a guy, if he can take the next step, he is a budding star in this league. So many love to talk about Lenoris Sellers and DJ Lagway and, Austin Simmons and John Mateer, and it's deservedly so. Don't get me wrong. But Marcel Reed is a guy that's got a very similar skill set, by the way, to the Lagways and the Sellers of the world. I think he could be that kind of dude. But worst case, what if he doesn't? What if he doesn't take that next step? What if the offensive line doesn't live up? What if the schedule, right? What if some of these teams in the schedule live up to the hype? At Notre Dame, what if that's an L? Florida's an L. South Carolina's an L. And I don't think you're losing all of those, but again, LSU, Texas, like you've got some really, really tough matchups, and this schedule could look really, really difficult depending on how some teams, how they deliver. Do they live up to their own expectations and hype going into the season? So again, I think the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle of these two, but my worst case, 7-5, I think the floor is at a pretty decent place. Best case, 10-2. Maybe, just maybe, this will be the year the Aggies break through, make the college football playoff, get to double-digit wins. What a huge season that would be for Mike Elko in year 2, building off of that 8-win season they had a season ago, but a sour taste in the mouth 8-win season when you started out 7-1 and were on the fast track to go to the SEC title. So, anyways, guys, I've got Texas A&M best case 10-2, worst case 7-5. When you look at this Aggies football team going into the 2025 season, what's your best case scenario and worst case scenario for Mike Elko's team? Guys, that's going to do it all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. Before we get out of here, I do want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel, because as always, we are brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Guys, college football season is just around the corner. You want to make sure you're in on all the action with our friends over at FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Guys, you can bet on literally anything and everything. They've got player props. They've got spreads. They've got totals. They've already got week 1 lines out for the college football season. Hey, if you want to bet on the A&M over-under, you can do that as well. You can bet on every SEC team's over-under for that fact. You can go bet on who's going to win the SEC title, who's going to win the national title. Everything you can think of. And it's not just college football. NFL starts this month. You want to get in on that. You got NBA just around the corner. NHL, MLB season is rocking and rolling. Playoffs will be here before you know it. And guys, there's even more than that. So again, make sure you check out our friends at FanDuel, FanDuel.com/SECU. That's FanDuel.com/SECU to get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Guys, that's going to do all for me. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast. Where we get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, SECUnfiltered.com. Till next time, I'm Chris Phillips of SEC Unfiltered. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, and we will catch you on the other side.